All right, up next and last as the fifth installment for now in our fake video game series is one I'm very excited about. It is a musical Nic Cage interactive experience. A rhythm game featuring some of Nic Cage's best musical moments sounds like just such a fun idea to me. It's one of my favorite actors. One of my favorite kinds of games to design something for, and I think I've come up with something pretty cool here. So for this one, we're going to be taking a look at his role in Wild at Heart, timely with the recent passing of David Lynch. So I wanted to do something a little different for these illustrations, try out a few different techniques, and some of Nic Cage's fashion choices and costume designing in his movies are some of the best elements, and taking that and kind of creating a moody atmosphere around it is something I really wanted to focus on. So you can see I've kind of gone with this, what's going to be very like snakeskin pattern, which I think ties into Wild at Heart really nicely. So I just found an unsplashed texture, kind of formed it to the jacket there, and I'm gonna let that pattern dictate some of the major elements in this illustration. I really like the proportions that I have here. I looked at some screen caps from the movies. It's been a while since I've seen it. It could honestly do with a rewatch. But his face is very, which makes sense, right? But his face is very emotive during the musical performances, and his progression and ties to Elvis in Wild at Heart is just super fun. So I've got my kind of texture there, and now I'm going to start blocking in some of these colors, and you'll see how the color selections are really going to play with the ultimate environment and like fake video game scenario that I end up dropping this into. So there's that snakeskin. I've got kind of these, I don't know, like cream style highlights that I think worked really well. And so to keep things consistent here, even though I'm changing the pose and expression, I wanted to keep the same proportions. So I took my original ink outlines and I'm going through and kind of using that as the skeleton for what I'm going to do next, just keeping the same shape language throughout. For something that's supposed to be in a fake video game, this consistency is something that I really wanted to focus on. This pose is a little bit more expressive. I kind of pictured it as the song starts off, it's really slow, and then goes into something a little bit more dramatic and dynamic. I think I also end up closing the eyes on this one, which I thought was just like a small but nice touch. Paying attention to those human elements like blinking and emoting during a video game, I think goes a long way in helping sell it. Again, I'm looking at that snakeskin texture, kind of applying it here, and forming it just to the jacket, making sure I've got the same color selections, and applying the same colors for shadows and highlights so the mood remains consistent throughout the piece. So we've got one pose, we've got a second one, which we're showing here, and then finally I wanted to end things with a pretty simple close-up. So I took a zoomed-in version of the first image, and just going through and adding some sharper, more refined details that you would get from a close-up, and then changing the expression and emotion on them. So again, the proportions on this project were really something I wanted to focus on, and this was a good way to keep it consistent throughout. You could see I'm doing much more rendering with the ink for the close-up than I would have done on the other two poses, and I think that just ends things off nicely as a good conclusive, final shot for this fake video game that we're going to have here. Adding line weight is something that I'm experimenting with more and more, and it's really changing things pretty drastically. I mean, I feel like intuitively and structurally that's something I know but haven't formally put into practiced as often as I would like, and this close-up shot was a good place to explore that. So we've got the highlights that'll finish things off here, and that's our nice close-up face. So here's kind of how I pictured the scenes. The bubbles, I thought, I don't know why. The pink, the bubbles, the stage, I thought it all worked really nicely together. And I kind of, the technique would be, I'm not a game designer, so the technique here I would imagine is pretty standard for this type of game, but I still thought it was super fun. I'm not going to try and sing this by any means, but you can see here at the end what it would look like with some motion actually timed out to how long the each line would take to physically sing. So there's some kind of goofy transitions here, but I thought it kept everything fun, kept everything light. So yeah, that's my musical Nic Cage interactive experience proposal. There are other musical elements, some even focusing on Elvis, that I think would be super cool. But for such a long and storied career, there's plenty to pull from. Obviously wanted to do something that tied in with David Lynch. And that concludes our fifth and final fake video game for now. It's been a fun series. We'll see you in the next one.